autism destroys families. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
That was RFK Jr., the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, and those controversial and unsubstantiated claims about autism were made nearly a month ago. However, the lasting impact of those statements have affected individuals with autism and their families, as well as folks with disabilities.
Experts and university researchers say the vast majority of people on the spectrum do not have these severe challenges, and that an overwhelming amount of evidence points to a genetic cause for autism, not environmental causes, as RFK Jr. claimed. So here today to discuss are two moms. We got Carol Bakos here. She's the executive director for a nonprofit leading research and support into Jordan syndrome, which is a rare disability. Great to see you, Carol. And then we also have Marjorie Smith here. Marjorie Smith is a former high school teacher teaching U.S. and world history and government. Thank you both for being here. And after hearing those statements from RFK Jr., you're concerned. So
Absolutely.
Let's just first start as mothers. Carol, let's start with you. Talk to me about your daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. So my daughter Yara is almost 12, and she lives with a rare disability, and she has had—
There's Yara.
Yep, she's had to work very hard for what comes naturally to most. Communicating, walking, making friends, navigating her days at school. And she does it all with so much grace and joy and resilience. And she is just lights up every room she walks into. And we're just so fortunate that we get to be her family.
And Marjorie, what about you? Your son Ernie is 5.
Yeah. So Ernie's 5, just finishing up kindergarten, and I actually created a book for him about a year ago when he got his autism diagnosis, and he wanted to share this with me today. It highlights what autism is, a lot of the strengths that he has, along with challenges. So some of his strengths, his attention to detail, his memory is impeccable. He loves reading, running, building Legos. And some of the challenges that he experiences are coping with, here's the book right here. Some of the challenges are coping with meeting new people, changing routine, along with various other things. But one of the things this morning he told me to show people is his favorite page. He loves seeing all the famous people throughout history who either are suspected to have autism or who are confirmed. And one of his favorites is Charles Schulz. And there's a little picture of Charlie Brown and Snoopy on here. So he wanted to make sure that you guys saw that as well. His favorite page. So,
the connectivity is so important.
Yes, exactly.
Carol, I want to ask you, when we talk about RFK and we, played that, we played the soundbite, right? That everybody has heard those comments, those statements, but for someone who is so connected to that community, can you talk about the dangers of what saying those things mean?
Yeah, I mean, words from people in power hold so much weight. And then when you start sending messaging that is dehumanizing, it reinforces a stereotype and a stigma that individuals with disabilities and their families are already facing. Right? So individuals with disabilities have to navigate a world that is not designed for them, whether it's the streets or the schools or the job interviews. And that's already an uphill battle. And on top of all of that, they're judged against how well they're functioning within that environment, not how are we accommodating that environment to what is needed. And now we're telling them they're a problem that needs to be fixed, and that's really devastating.
Wow. Marjorie, what are your thoughts on Kennedy's proposed autism research and having it, a cure for autism by September?
I mean, research is always important when you have objective, science-based research that will help us understand autism better. That's wonderful. The problem is that Kennedy has essentially thrown aside decades of autism research in order to promote his own anti-scientific beliefs that have been debunked time and time again. If there's going to be research done, it's important that it's voluntary, it's transparent, it involves the autistic community along with researchers, and it's done for the benefit of supporting people with autism.
And when you look at it, and I don't know if a lot of folks even know this happens, but the government does use private medical records, right, for National Autism Database. And on one hand, you can see knowledge is power. You need to know what's happening. But I mean, using children's information, what do you view that as a mom?
Right, I mean, that's really scary. We're talking about very private personal data that is now made available in a public database. And again, I mean, we're already dealing with so much discrimination when it comes to healthcare, to education, to employment, and now that's adding that risk of discrimination, of surveillance for no real benefit. Like, what is the real benefit we're going after here? And that's a really scary way to do that. So any data that needs to be collected, we need individuals that are self-advocates or their families to be the center of that data collection and to be treated with the dignity and the respect and not just as another data point.
Yeah, the othering is
Right.
alarming. Okay, so Marjorie, talk to me about, do you have any messages? If there's any families out there, parents out there watching who feel affected by some of these elected officials claiming unsubstantiated statements, or claims rather, about autism, do you have any specific messages for them?
Yeah, I would say to try to focus on people who are doing good, because there are a lot of amazing organizations and individuals out there who genuinely want to help and support people with autism. A good example would be local organizations around the Denver metro area who are creating low sensory days for children and adults on the spectrum. So for example, a few weeks ago, the Autism Society of Colorado actually teamed up with KUSA to do their first ever low sensory day. And my son and I went.
You did?
Yep, it was amazing. And he said it was the best day of his life.
Oh my God, that's emotional.
Incredible.